Welcome to Founder Problems Podcast. Today we'll be talking about productivity, our obsession with it, and the whiplash it can cause when you, let's say, take a vacation or have a normal summer. I'm Sarah Schumacher. I build websites for service businesses, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Zach and Lee.
I'm Zach Oshinbanjo. I run a nonprofit that is pursuing the American dream of creating housing.
Nice.
I'm Lee Zuvanich, and I build apps for people and try to keep them secure so that LLMs don't take all their data.
A worthy goal. Cool. Well, we're going to kick this off by talking about the deep, potentially spiraling question of why are we all so obsessed with productivity? Zach, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I would say the obsession with productivity for me is personal. I think I have a mindset that is very much focused on if you aren't doing anything, then I don't even know who came up with it. It might even be what is it called? There's a movie or maybe it's a book, The Fantastic Mr. Fox or something like that. He says, I'm tired of living in a hole. And then his wife's like, we're fox. We live in holes or burrows or whatever. And he's, I want to do something different. And he says, if nothing changes. So that's where I think a lot of my basis for productivity comes from. This movie.
That's
I would,
awesome.
I would say that if you're trying to get any work done, if you're trying to get something done, I think you have to have an impact on it yourself. And so a lot of that influences, you have to be, I don't know. It almost seems like I can't get to the point. I'm being very unproductive in my answer, but I think it's a personal decision of wanting to have impact, want to have some sort of involvement in my environment or my community, or because if you're not doing anything, then I feel like there's this stagnation where nothing happens and nothing changes. Because if you're lamenting constantly outside that there's not enough X or Y or Z, if there's not enough housing, and you're just on your porch shaking your fist, the productivity would lend that you do something about it. So I think there's an ability for everyone to have some semblance of control of their own life. And I think that is productivity. You can choose to be productive and have impact, or you can choose to be unproductive and just lament and anguish about things all day.
That's a really healthy perspective on productivity. My mind went somewhere completely different. I was like, that's actually really great. That's like a self-actualization. That's like positive. That everything you just said is good. That's like the angle that you want to have. Whereas like my angle is the roots of this are like religious in nature and like this concept of if you're lazy, like I'm reading a book called The Laziness Lie right now, and I would just quote the whole thing if I started quoting it because I saved so many things. So I'm just going to link it in the show notes. But this concept that we're told that if you're not being productive, you're lazy and that laziness is bad. And that goes all the way back to this idea of, if you want to get really technical, like this religious Christian concept of like predestinate, like being like you are chosen to be saved is a certain theological idea that the early people in America had. Again, like, this is very American centric, I should say, too. And so the way that you proved that you were a good person, that you were chosen to be saved or whatever, is you had to work really hard because how else would the people know? And so there's like all these weird religious fundamentals of working hard and laziness is bad. And if you're lazy, you're bad. Like it's like the two are equivalent in our minds. And so
Idle
we don't
hands are the
really.
devil's work.
Yes, exactly. That's a great quote. Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's like this whole thing is built into the foundation of American culture, plus this concept of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and like extreme individualism. And so you take all that and you put it on your own shoulders and you just absorb it. And because it's the water we swim in, I don't think a lot of us think about how deeply it affects us. And then you add in like what the healthy perspective, like what Zach just said. And then you also add in whatever weird mental disorder we founders have. We have to go start things. And it's just like this like triple whammy of all the things. Lee, what is your angle on why we're obsessed with productivity?
I think so. Both of you have really compelling answers. I was also really raised in the Protestant Christianity world in the US where what are you doing? Why are you sitting? You could be dusting, like you lazy little child kind of environment. And I probably internalized that. I think it's interesting that you found Zach's answer so healthy and you kept calling it healthy because while he was describing it, I was imagining the therapist that would psychoanalyze the three of us and be like, oh, you're all very similar. Let me make a list of all the things I can diagnose you with. I feel like that therapist that kind of lives in my brain would say something in response to Zach's answer like, oh, did you not have a lot of control as a child, Zachary? Did you feel out of control?
This is
And
true.
so for
Man.
me, I might say yes, actually. I take great comfort in rearranging furniture too. I like to have control over my environment. Also, that's just a fun Saturday night, in my opinion. But I think I pissed off the neighbor last night because I was rearranging the furniture at 2 in the morning. Um, I've read that's very specific thing ADHD people take pleasure in for some reason. But I like to customize my environment. I like to curate my world. I like to have control over, my day and feel like I'm making something of it for many reasons. I'm sure I probably need a real therapist to help me unpack. But the answer that I wrote down when we were preparing for this episode is that I was raised in a place where I could see what happens when you don't hustle. So that's the first thing that came to mind for me with a blue collar background coming from a small refinery town on the border of a Native American reservation where there's a lot of poverty everywhere. And in my entire family, I love my family. I'm really proud of my family. And I don't think there's anything wrong with this, but my entire family is comprised of artists and there's a few engineers, but a lot of machinists and people and craftspeople, people who work with their hands or woodworkers, that kind of thing. Things that I aspire to be. But as a single parent, I looked at all these options and was like, none of those make me enough money to provide what I want to give to my kids and give us just the financial stability that I think that we need. I had to work my ass off. Nothing was ever really handed to me in the sense that there wasn't family money to make sure that I went to college, for instance. I had plenty of other privileges, but to get to where I am today, I had to work very hard. So I had just a very concrete reality that without optimizing my time and working harder than the people around me, I was never going to leave my small town. I was never going to escape lower middle class. I might end up on welfare forever. I was on welfare when my kids were young and I was a single parent, and it felt really good to get off of it. And that was a direct result of, for better or for worse, hustle that hospitalized me more than once because I was working too hard. So, yeah,
Def-
productivity's done a lot for me, and it's one of those things I have to unlearn as I get older.
Definitely the influence you can have on your environment. I think I also can recognize in an environment where you don't necessarily see you do see things that don't go the way that you want them to go in a positive way if you aren't engaged or you're active. I think because the alternative is, what if you choose to be unproductive? What does that actually accomplish? I think you nothing. You kind of, it puts you into a dead end potentially. And I tend to live with this ideology that we all have the opportunity to make a decision where we choose to some degree what the rest of our life is going to look like
Yeah,
within
okay.
reason.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
I want to clarify the reason that I thought that Zach's answer was healthy is because it's really important for personal growth that you have an internal locus of control. So an external locus of control would
Totally.
be assuming that everything happens to me, I don't have control over my circumstances, and it's because you create your own reality with how you think about things. If that's your mindset, you're never going to make changes. You're never going to apply yourself. So it's important to have that internal locus of control. Be like, okay, even if my situations are bad, like even if I was unlucky or this thing happened, like I still have the ability to affect change. So that's the positive thing that I saw in what he was saying is
That's
like, I
true.
think you want that. You're raising kids.
Mhm.
You want that. It's like the growth mindset versus a
Mhm.
fixed mindset. Not you are smart, but you worked really hard to study and that's why you did well on this test. And so it encourages people to grow. So I think that's healthy. I think that's important. The problem is that we lean so far in that direction unknowingly because again, we just live in this environment. We just are told laziness is bad. We are given these examples of people like it's crazy. It's not something that I think we think about or realize until it's bad. Until, "Oh, wow, I'm really burned out. How did that happen?" So, let's, like, yeah, step back and
But I've been
analyze
so
that a little bit more.
productive.
Yeah, and that's what's hard is because when you're productive, you feel like you did something and you don't really have anything to show for rest per se, which is what
Right.
makes it
Yeah.
hard. With that, let's jump into the deeper angle of this. Who benefits from productivity obsession? Is it us?
This is such a good question.
Yeah, that's we're getting very introspective here. I'll say that it depends because there's certain situations where it could benefit a lot of people, and I think we'll probably have some differing kind of takes on this. But if you're being productive so that you could help yourself, you're trying to work on a new business or something like that, obviously that benefits you and your immediate family and things like that. But if your business is output, say civic or nonprofit focused, that productivity benefits not the masses, a group of people. Maybe it's a particular neighborhood that has housing shortage, a food shortage, instability in one way or another. It could benefit a lot of people. I think it also matters too, how are you defining productivity? Because you could scramble in a hamster's cage or hamster's wheel, like, oh yeah, I'm doing 100 things today, and then it's like, because I was gonna say I have a kid, and sometimes she thinks she's helping, but she's not. But that's just like where you're at. But it's how do you define what is productivity? If you set out a list of things and say I need to write 15 grants today, and you just put together a pile of horse manure and send it off, that's not productive. So I think it's how do you define
Yeah.
productivity? Is it the successful completion of tasks? Is it moving and edging things forward? I think that's all important. But I think to the basis of the question is who benefits. It could be yourself or it could be others. I think we should strive, call me selfish man, that it should benefit us. We should benefit ourselves as much as we can because oftentimes other forces are benefiting from us, sometimes without permission or authorization.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm glad you mentioned the definition because I just realized, like, we haven't actually defined what we mean by productivity. I guess we're just assuming that
Yeah.
people that listen to this are the type that read those books, are familiar with productivity culture. But yeah, I think
Mhm.
defining it for yourself is really important because you could define productivity as a list of 15 different things. It's just unrealistic. So you're setting yourself up for failure in the first place. It's not just getting things done, it's also getting the right things done. What if you did get all those 15 things done and they weren't even moving moving the needle?
Half,
Uh, I hate
half,
those business
half-assed.
cliches, and I just used one. Yeah,
Un
I don't know. I think I have in my head this imaginary, I need to get blank done to feel like I had a good day. And I don't think that's totally defined always. It's a very ephemeral feeling. And if I break it down at the end of the day, I can pick it apart sometimes. But I wonder, even just if I sat down and was like, today I would be productive by doing, here's the bare minimum, which I kind of try to do. I use this concept of most important tasks MITs or whatever. So I'll be like, okay, my MITs for today, you pick a few big things. But that's not really enough. I feel like I had a productive day, I think on Tuesday. And then I was like at the end of the day, like, okay, why did that feel like a good balanced day? Because I didn't overwork. And it was like, okay, what's different about this? And I think it was just that I did some actual development that solved some things. It was like I checked boxes. It wasn't like this unending answering questions about a thing or putting together, it was concrete stuff. I don't know, but I think, yeah, defining what productivity looks like in the first place makes a big difference because who benefits? If I'm going to benefit, then I need to decide what that line is and make sure it's realistic, and then I benefit. But if I'm not doing that, if I'm just in this grind of I have to work as much as possible, we're all entrepreneurs here, but Zach, you work a day job. But if you're obsessed with your day job, your employer benefits. If you're like, oh, I got to be productive, I got to work, I'm going to work extra hours, I'm going to be on call all the time. Who benefits? Your employer. Who benefits at the end of the day? Capitalist society, like all the grinding that we do for a job that doesn't, you're a number to them. That's who's going to benefit at the end of the day if we're not more cognizant of what it actually means. And I understand we also have a lot of freedom to say who benefits. We'll just structure it so you benefit. Okay, I can say that because I am the boss. I'm a really bad boss though. Entrepreneurs their own worst boss. But yeah,
Mhm.
man, I think the definition thing we should have probably started with. But that has me thinking about how I'm going to reassess my mornings now, actually. We
Say
think about
more. I want
what's
I want
that?
to hear more. What do you mean? What would you reassess about your mornings?
Knowing I know that if I can do honestly, this is why it's so hard for me to delegate, I think, some of the development stuff, because 'cause I'm like, "I'm not gonna do delivery anymore." I'm trying to step back from that. But that's when I feel productive. If a client's like, "Hey, we need to update this, blah, blah, blah,
You've been
whatever," and I go,
saying this
"Update it."
since I met you. You
I know,
always
and
just
it's the same. And that's why it's hard because the higher level strategic stuff, it doesn't
Mhm,
have a clear end date necessarily, or
mhm.
it takes longer. It doesn't feel as like launching a website and be like, "This is public now," after all this work is very satisfying, or even
Yeah.
just updating a thing or completing a task. And so I think that's part of why it's hard for me to let go of all those things, because if I do at least a couple of those things, then I feel like I did something.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm saying. My if I'm assessing my morning, I should at least make sure I have a is there some easy thing I can check off the list that's not me getting pulled into the weeds that still
Yeah.
feels complete?
Yeah, what you
So,
were describing about just the endless answering of emails to me, I feel like is
yeah.
that water torture of owning a business. But what you're describing as being very pleased with your day when you've completed something like development work. We've talked about this before about personalities and how you're a builder and I
Yeah.
can't remember what else. But my daughter's like that. She has a goal for herself of building at least one website page per day. She has this sprawling,
Mm.
insane website maze art thing she's building, and she wants it to be hundreds of pages. And you just wander through it, and it's an experience. It's very avant garde. And if she doesn't complete a page per day, she gets depressed. And if she does complete, and it could take her as little as 5 minutes. She's just doing these little concepts and learning JavaScript and stuff. And this is her hobby. This is what she considers fun, but it's also part of her portfolio. And if she gets it done, she's just happy all day long. And I think that's a mindset, but it's also a personality type. And she already knows that about herself. So I think she's got a kind of an edge on other kids her age who don't know what to do with their life yet. She doesn't know exactly what she's going to do for a living, but she knows how to be happy already, which is what
Mm,
it sounds like
mhm.
you need too. I don't know if that's true for me. It probably is, but I don't know if it would be in the form of a website or app dev. Because sometimes when I'm done building features for an app, I do not feel any better about my life. I might feel like I can check a box, but I need to make art or I need to write something or I need to be outside moving around, being in nature. Those are the things that make me feel like that was a day worth living. And when the kids and I are not achieving goals, doesn't matter what it is, but if it's something that we know we need for our own happiness, when we're just not doing it, we start to get cranky and disaffected. So I put this huge calendar up on the wall and we wrote one simple goal on it. Jasmine's was make one web page per day. Isaiah's was, I think, learn part of a new song every day because he's teaching himself piano. And mine, true to form, was like 5 things. It wasn't just one thing. But it was just some basic health goals, get outside, read a little bit. And when we check those boxes, we are happy. And we can see this giant wall visual of whether or not we've done them. So when we're talking about productivity in a negative way, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think that for at least me and my family, it gives us a sense of groundedness when it's, like Zach was saying, beneficial to us. It's designed to be first and foremost something that makes our life better. But to answer the question, who benefits from productivity? My answer originally was shareholders, bosses, and men in general. Thinking of it as a more like it sounded almost sinister when you originally asked the question. Who
It did.
benefiting anyway? But yeah, is that wealth really trickling down? No, it's not. And it really made me for some reason the question who is benefiting from this productivity is specifically makes me think of the unpaid and unseen labor that women do in society and how they subsidize everything that we need as a society. And similarly, Zach, you were saying like when you're productive on behalf of an NGO, a nonprofit, then let's say who need food or housing benefit, which is very worthwhile work. But I also believe that productivity is subsidizing the responsibility of the government, that I'm paying taxes to make sure those things happen. But maybe those taxes need to be coming back down in the form of grants to people like Zach. And I sure hope that people like Zach are working hard to make sure those houses get built. So I
Yeah.
guess it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It can't. So yeah, it's a good point. I really hope that we're all putting our productivity to work for the greater good. When you're just grinding away in the service of shareholders or stakeholders or your own ego, then we get stuff like Chat GPT. We get things that are like impressive and also destructive, maybe.
Yeah, so
Maybe
okay, so I think there's a line here, like what you described about having that list, and Jasmine's decided she's gonna create a page every day or whatever, so she's doing the thing that she knows she wants to do, and she's putting her energy into that. I think the
Mhm.
problem is that because we have to work to make money to buy food and live, that the
Darn it.
default it becomes the work. It's I
Yeah.
have to get enough done at my job to feel fulfilled because I go home and I crash and I veg out and then I go to sleep and then I repeat the whole thing again. And because
Yeah.
for me, like I'm a maker. I have to make things. I make things, I build things. That's really the key. So if I didn't get anything productive done, like for a work task throughout the whole day, it was just all frustrating, troubleshooting or whatever. But I was able to write an essay or work on a painting in the evening or even build something with Legos for my kid or something. That's productive. So I think the issue it's not and then I think we're all like that's what makes humans unique versus animals is we're driven to create things. We have to create like we look at what we've created. We have to create stuff. But if you're only creating stuff for your job or for your business and never for you as an individual, I think that's where it gets dangerous. So it's a requirement to balance out if I'm going to get my tasks done at work, great. I should be on top of project management. I should know what needs to be done. I should work on the actual tasks that actually make sense. But then I also need to stop at a certain point and make sure I'm also making time for these other things that are more important to me personally. So I think that's the problem with this productivity obsession. It just all gets poured into the capitalist machine and not into us. And then even if you let's say someone starts painting and they get really into making like little watercolors or something, people are like, "Oh man, you should start selling those on Etsy." Turn it into a side hustle, right? It automatically always becomes commercialized because it's not seen
Yes.
as having any value if you're not making some sort of money off of it. But,
Yeah.
like, for my art, if I were to sell it, it would defeat the purpose of it wouldn't have any purpose anymore. Like, that's the purpose is, like, countercultural. It's, like, to do a thing that does not have a purpose tied to, like, a commodity.
I don't need to
So
sell this. It's not a working
yes.
function. I have a friend he's he works at a city-run uh, agency, and he
Mhm.
spends all his time doing overtime. He's there from like sun up to sundown, but at the same time, he's a fishing enthusiast, and he also makes his own bait and tackle. He can do the whole thing. He has molds, and he's pressing and molding, doing all the stuff, and he loves to do that. It's very time intensive, and he's actually proactively taking the steps to sell them. So he goes to conventions, he does consignment deals and stuff like that, but that's his passion. He could literally and he often spends weeks just going down to Alabama, going to Louisiana, just out in the water all day. Not for me, but great for him. And he has the passion to do it and loves to sell and can talk to you about baits and why it matters that the eye is canted to the left or to the right and what impact that has. And he can sell it. But he has to spend so much of his time doing all the city work that by the time he gets home, he doesn't feel like doing it, and he also can't buy the goop that you make the bait out of, and so
Mhm.
it's like this endless cycle to feed the machine, which at this time obviously is like someone else's machine. I'm such a movie, music, media focused person. When I hear different concepts, I instantly relate it to like a show or a movie that I've seen because this makes me think of there's this where like people are on like giant moving countries and like the big countries eat the smaller countries. It's like fantastic machines or fantastic
You
Oh
watch
my
way
Sarah
more
and I are
movies than
both.
I do.
Yeah, we don't watch a lot of movies.
I'm the last person you need. I
Wrong
had no
crowd.
idea. I don't
Hugo
watch any. All I
Weaving's
watch is
in
Fail.
it.
anime. Sorry.
There's like a giant Great Britain like roaming like Mad Max style truck that eats up like Czechoslovakia or something because it's smaller, and they're like, we need the resources. So this
God.
monster truck country eats another. All right. Anyways, it's either that or
Intrigued.
Futurama. There's a slug in like this little factory, and he's like the party slug, and
Beautiful Katamari. How about that for the video game reference?
yeah,
You
like
play the guy that rolls the ball and it rolls up
yeah,
everything and just
you're
keeps
ringing it
rolling
up
and getting
for
bigger. Yeah, like the snowball.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I gotta show note all these references, but when it goes
We
to
have a
that,
long list.
you're just feeding the beast, and it's not your own beast.
Yes, you're feeding the beast, it's not your beast. That's exactly, that is a great point because you describing your friend to me is if you can balance, the problem is work expects so much of us, but if you can balance those things, to me, that's ideal. My husband works a full-time job. He's very committed to his job and all that stuff, but he gets off work, and unless he's on call anyway, he's off work. So he's off today. So he goes and he plays frisbee golf this morning. That's his thing he's into doing. And it's like, that's very healthy and probably what more normal people, not like us, do. That aren't constantly over here like, I
amazing.
start another business. I have another business idea. How if I turn this into a side hustle? I also want to make this on my free time that I don't have. Some of us are just wired differently to make it more difficult for us to resist some of that. You
Mortal
must be productive all the
Engines.
time. Yeah.
Mortal Engines
So
is the name of the
Mortal
movie. If anybody
Engines.
wants to see a movie with giant country-sized vehicles eating other countries.
that sounds wild. We're gonna have a great random list of show notes in this thing. Okay, so let's jump into some more positive, actionable things related to this and ask when is it time to just close the laptop and do something else versus like being caught in this mindset that maybe you're not fully aware of. And I'll just jump into this because the part of the reason that we are on this topic is because I just took the entire month of July off. We're recording this, August 7th? So I took the entire month of July off, which is crazy because I have been working non-stop, just insane, juggling giant complex projects and things since almost a year at this point. I think it was like after school started last year, and this year kicked off just chaos, absolute chaos. And I knew like I just didn't have time to take a break because I had to get through all these projects. And the second that the last like middle of June, we like launched the last big thing, I was like, okay, I have a little bit of a gap. I'm going to step back for a bit. And you know, what if I just took the whole month of July off? My kid's out of school. It's chaos anyway, trying to figure that out. And so I did. And the beauty of having that distance is that it gives you some perspective, which I knew that I needed. And one of the things that I was thinking about going into is, of course, my typical like planning. Oh, I'm going to take the month of July off. All right, what do I want to do on my time off? And then it was like, no, that's a productivity thing. That's like this whole thing of what am I going to do? What am I going to have done? I'm going to come back from July and I'm going to have all this stuff to show for. And I was like, no, I can't. I cannot even think this way because that's that whole productivity obsession. If I take time off, I'm supposed to come back and be like, oh, it was great. I restarted my newsletter. I reviewed some more manga. I read a bunch of manga. I did like all whatever. I have to be productive. Otherwise, it will feel like I wasted that month. And so just going into it, I just decided I wasn't going to think that way. I did pretty good, I think. But at the end, the last week of the month, I'm like, man, was this good? Was this worth it? Am I refreshed? Did I relax? How do you relax? That's why I read manga. That's my only way to relax. It shuts off my brain. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Okay, now that I've had some space, the first thing I realized is I took too long to take some space. And I knew that, but again, there are phases where the projects I was in the middle of, I couldn't stop on those. And so now that I'm like, okay, I took too long. And so that means my work pace was unsustainable. I could have made different choices that would have made it more sustainable. Now I'm coming back. So I'm going to reset how I work. So what does that need to look like? What is a reasonable day? What does productivity look like every day? How much should I be working? And so I'm thinking about all of this stuff that I haven't had time to think about because I was just too busy. A big issue is that we wait too long to close the laptop, and then it's, oh, a month isn't enough to process everything because you need a week to relax and to collapse essentially, and then you need some reflection time and then have some energy to work on your projects or whatever. So I think that there needs to be some sort of a trigger or a fail-safe or something, which is gonna be different for everybody, but in your working environment, be like, "Okay, I've noticed that when I start to get overly stressed, I drop the ball." I don't know. That people have to figure this out for themselves, but all I know is that coming back, I'm paying a lot more attention to certain things. What do I hate doing? What really sucks the life out of me? What more can I delegate? Do I need to bring in someone to help with things? And I'm thinking a lot, not that I already wasn't thinking about those things, but I'm thinking about that a lot more so that I can be more proactive next time. So, well, there shouldn't be a next time. I'll just put it that way. I need to balance out what I'm doing now, but I'm only able to come back to that and look at it clearly because I'm not running nonstop. So my answer to when is it time to close the laptop is before you get burnt out. Good luck
Is
So wait,
figuring that
like
out.
once every 3 months you close your laptop?
To be honest, when I do my 12-week year planning properly, you're supposed to work on reassessing your goals the end of every quarter. So yes, actually, if I do a good job of doing that, I actually the last week of each quarter, I'm like, okay, how did this quarter go? What is next quarter going to look like? So yes, if I'm on top of that, I would actually be doing that, but that hasn't happened in a while, unfortunately. But yeah, leave. It's a good point. Also, we should have more vacation time built in. I say vacation time, but
Oh,
honestly, it could just be take a personal day. Entrepreneurs are really bad about doing that, so I say I'm a terrible
I
boss to
know.
myself. I could
Mhm.
take a personal day anytime I wanted. Do I wanna do that? Do I ever do No.
So that energy of like, what
Same.
would you do with the time? I think is sometimes where my brain goes. Like sometimes I want, why don't you take a day off? Whether it be for my day kind of investments or what I'm doing in there, or what I do for the nonprofit. It's like, and do what? And do what? Like, what am I gonna
Yeah,
do?
I know.
That's
My
Um,
mind
why
immediately goes like, I don't wanna be like those people who take days off.
that's why you have to have a hobby. That's the problem is too many of us turn our business or our hobbies into our businesses, and
yeah.
then that is what we do all the time. So it's like you have to have hobbies that you refuse to let be touched by commercial interests. For me, that's okay, if I'm gonna be do I have to create something, again, it's gotta be something that's separate, and I think most of us just don't prioritize that. Because time is money, right? That's also I should also throw out, a lot of us get paid hourly if you're doing freelance work, and so if you're used to
Mhm.
trading an hour for dollars, why wouldn't you continue trading more hours for more dollars? And if you're not working, you're literally losing money. It's like this weird mindset thing I think we have sometimes that you have to just stop, just cut it off, as hard as that
Uh,
is.
I think the time you know that it's time to close the laptop is probably when it starts being like we referred to earlier, is when you start just sending out swill, just a bunch of just
Mm,
trash emails, your half-cocked replies, just grants aren't up to muster. You're when your heart's not into it, I think that's the time. But often I feel like by the time that you recognize that's happening, you're already like 20 deep in rejection emails for grants. So you're like, oh, I should probably offload this. I think one of the things like that might be productive, maybe in your situation, Sarah, just like to recognize the feeling you have when you're not working or when you're taking a quote unquote vacation, and try to work back things off your plate that look like that. I don't know, like not wanting to be on discovery call or a sale call or doing the last mile delivery, doing those different components. Every component of that as it comes off your plate takes you towards this vacation like reality, but that's probably super impossible for most people to do because eventually you can't get rid of everything unless you're like some spirit investor and you're like 1,000 miles back from the business, and you just
yeah.
kind of peek in to see how things are going, read the P&L every month and mail it in. But I think you know when it's time to close the laptop when you start being ineffective and you just feel like you're just putting out rubbish. I think that should be a very critical period. Sometimes I feel like that, especially when you're trying to put out 10 fires at a time and you just have to, okay, 9 of these are small. One of these, if you do nothing to prevent the fire from spreading, will collapse everything as you know it. That is probably foremost what you should focus on. So
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
that's when you know it's time.
I was sick with a cold last week, and I was hitting a point where I couldn't engage with technical concepts in the way that I needed to. And that's how I knew that I just had to go to bed every day. I would try to work a little bit every day, but I just wasn't feeling well. And sometimes when I'm sick, I don't really realize how sick I am until something like that happens. And it's like the math is not mathing. It's for me, it feels like a lack of excitement. I was reading through scopes of work and technical architecture for systems, and maybe I'm lucky in that I still get excited about this stuff, but I was not excited. I was so bored and I was just so over it. I just was like almost mad that I had to be doing this work. And I don't normally feel that way. That's not normal for me. I usually get excited and I'm engaged with the ideas and I'm like, I can make that better. Which is the mental illness that we were talking about. The idea that in that personality of who I normally am, I'm not feeling that. That tells me I need to be done for a while and just go rest. But my original answer to this question was before the sun sets every day. Are we not closing our laptop and ending work and getting
Yeah.
in some sunshine? Is that just me in
Sunshine.
Spain?
What's
Yeah,
that?
that's a unorthodox kind of viewpoint there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think breaks
it's something I've been trying more recently, and it's a new idea for sure, but it's been good for me.
I think everyone thinks about, yeah, I need to stop sooner or whatever, but I also think breaks are really underrated. One of the
Yeah.
things I'm like, okay, when I come back, I'm gonna first of all try to take a lunch break and then read a chapter of one of the business books I'm reading on that lunch break. That's a really small thing, but it's a little minor reset that actually makes a huge difference. Because I stopped letting myself read business books before bed. So I can't really, if I'm, it's not a good idea. So if I'm going to do that, if I'm not making time in the morning, which is what I will, would sometimes do if my schedule will allow for it, just do it on a lunch break. Just take 15 minutes. And instead of just like wolfing some food and then running back to your desk, that makes a massive difference as a consistent, easy to achieve thing throughout your daily schedule that's going to prevent you from burning out. And it's not that hard. We always look at this like crazy, I'm going to start ice plunging or whatever nonsense. You're like, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and work out for 2 hours. No, just take a lunch break and maybe eat some food. Start there.
Agree.
I'm talking to myself. And then throw in a chapter of a book. That's not, again, that's not that hard. And if I'm really, or meditate for 5 minutes. Okay, if I can't meditate for 20 minutes a day, 5 minutes. If all these little things, I think, don't seem like much. And so it's so easy to skip them. And then you end up at the point where you're like, I need to take a month off from work.
Really.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, all those little micro habits really, for me, make the difference between getting so sick that I have to take work off
Mm.
and being healthy and happy in my day. So actually, I've been circling this different like hacks because I'm obsessed with productivity. We're not talking about it as if it's a good thing because we're trying to find balance, but I am obsessed with optimizing my day and I've been trying to find a way to work those little things in with accountability because I just won't do them even though I know I should, right? It's the get up at the same time every day, get enough sleep every night, drink water, exercise in some way, even if it's a 15-minute walk, exercise every day, eat lunch away from a screen, all those little things that sound too easy, like they're not going to make a difference. They do. They really do. And yet I cannot bring myself to do them. So I built an entire app around this concept, but then I was also using it for my kids to hold them accountable. And their favorite thing to tell me was the app's not working. There's a bug, so I can't do it, which was very
Founder problems.
yes. It was the opposite of productive among many feelings that brought up for me because I'd be like, oh, let me just stop everything in the middle of a work day to fix the app that I built so that we would all save time. And it became infuriating. So I regressed us to a spreadsheet with an accountability ADHD coach type person who is our accountability backup to me, making sure everything gets done every day. And she checks in 20 minutes a day on this spreadsheet. And it has been life changing for us because all those little things that you know you should do, but you won't do, it turns out if you're paying someone or there's a penalty of some kind, you'll do them. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's been a really helpful system to implement that.
Man. Okay, so if we're thinking more positively about it, then what changes when we come back to the laptop? If our last question was about when do you know it's time to close it? I kind of covered what I would do coming back, or what I am doing coming back, I should say. But is that your answer to what you would change coming back? Is maybe more accountability around meaningful tasks? Because you could have, I feel like you needed to say meaningful because you could just be like, make me accountable to my list of 15 to dos. But
Yeah, I'm still working on it. It's been a really interesting experience, like finding a balance between now I have extreme accountability. So how hard can I push myself? Um,
exactly, that's the
and like
obsession right there.
ironically, actually the week after we started doing it was like the most productive week of our lives, me and my kids probably. But after that, we all caught a cold. I think because we were not sleeping as much. We were trying to make sure we always get up on time because one of the first things on the list is verify that we're up by 9 a.m. And we all like to stay up late together. So our late night hanging out, making art, watching TV, we didn't necessarily stop doing that. We're trying to pack it all in. We're trying to do everything we like to do, plus this new list of things, and we all caught a cold. And so then I had to rein it in and be like, okay, I don't have to have a million things on this list, but there's just it, giving our day some structure is really all we needed. We need to make sure we get up at the same time and we eat something. We've got the dogs to force us to go outside, which is nice. So we're going outside a few times a day. We're eating dinner together at the same time every night now. I used to be pretty bad about that. I would just make dinner whenever I finally got done with work, which varies. And we have just a block of time that's just focused work. And that's not even part of the accountability. We all know what we need to do and we do it. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the table stakes. Go outside and move your body. Go to the gym and work out together as a family. That's a really big one that we never made time for. Yeah, we're getting now that we're over our cold, we're getting back to that, but we're not using it to grind super hard because I think that would almost be the opposite of what we want, which is some flexibility between a framework of structure and the freedom to move within it and do what we need to do.
Zach, what do you think?
I think you don't want to just be a person who repeats and does the same mistakes over and over. If you end up in this back against the wall situation where you're about to, as the young people say, you're about to crash out or something because you're overworking, you're trying to be, you're token maxing and all this other buzzwordy stuff. So I think you have to be able to come back to the laptop or whatever, the job or whatever, and make sure that you're creating the changes that create positivity in your own life. I don't want to sound too foo-foo or anything like that, but I think you have to be able to look at what happened to put me in this position and try to make the reasonable change in your own life. If you get to the position where you're like, I'm doing 15 grants at a time and that just doesn't make sense, you're pushing out slop, AI slop at that, you have to be able to say, okay, maybe I need to do this on a weekly basis. I'll do 3 here. Or what proactive measures can I take in my life where I'm not trying to crash course 15 applications in one day, when the reality is NOFOs and NOAs, notice of funding agreements and stuff like that, that comes out months in advance. So it's not like it's a secret where you should be waking up every day like, oh shoot, 10 grants today. No, pace it out. Give yourself some spacing. Maybe you do 2, maybe you do 1. Maybe you outsource it. Maybe you pay somebody a couple bucks to help you write it and do some strategy and like just focus on what you can do to make changes in your own life. You have more power than you believe. As He-Man says, I have the power.
It's true.
I think, yeah, understanding the point of diminishing returns is something that some of us that tend to get in hyper focused states can blow right past. I saw some research
Mm.
recently that was not 6-hour limit for knowledge workers. It was actually less than that. 6 hours is the upper limit of what a knowledge worker can achieve, and that if you go past that, it's over. There's a point of diminishing returns. So I think being aware of what those are for you and just learning when to stop, honestly, is if you did nothing else with that when you came back, go on vacation, come back, and then pay attention to when that stopping point is for you, I think that would be a good place to start. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I think we lost Lee, so I
Did
guess we'll just
too.
close it out. Thanks for listening. We will have some more episodes coming out soon.
Doo-doo.